All right, so why don't we move into Andrew? What do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Jozwiak or do you want to start with here?
Let's start with Jozwiak, but I'm gonna let you go and deal with it because Grace is getting upset and I don't want her to ruin the audio. That's my puppy.
Oh yeah, Grace loves to jump in and interrupt us all the time. All right, so a new designated player just signed for Charlotte, Kamil Jozwiak. Hopefully, we haven't botched the name too bad. We are historically bad when it comes to that. He came over from Derby, so we wanted to get the inside scoop on him. So when he was playing for Derby, how did he fare? How was he doing?
Yeah, so Kamil Jozwiak, interesting player. He fits everything on paper, right? When we signed Kamil, it was 22-year-old Polish winger. He'd done pretty well in Lech Poznan. We knew that he was he needed a bit of polishing around the edges. He was a bit rough, a bit raw, but you see he's got a bit of skill. He's got a lot of pace. He had scored a few goals for Lech Poznan. We paid a reported fee of £4.5 million for Kamil Jozwiak. So, pretty good on paper. Polish international. You're sitting there, you're like, wow, maybe we've got this player. And a bit of the context for your listeners is Derby's scouting system traditionally does not look outside of the English home countries there. Like when we sign a foreign player, it's like, wow, they actually got passports and a plane ticket, which is shocking in today's globalized football economy. But yeah, so Kamil came. And I think I was talking about this with one of the Derby journalists the other week on our podcast, and poetically, what summed up Kamil Jozwiak's career at Derby was a disallowed goal against Nottingham Forest. In all of his appearances for Derby, he scored one goal. He was frozen out really towards the end. I know Charlotte wanted to pick him up in the January transfer window, but he picked up an ankle injury that delayed it. We know that he joined Charlotte for reported £1.5 million fee. So we're not actually going to see any of that money as Derby County because that money is owed to Lech Poznan. We still owe money on him. So you can tell how bad we are at player trading. Not great. And I think for Kamil, if he puts everything together on paper that you look at as this player and he buffs out some of these rough patches, he's going to be an incredibly great player for Charlotte. We've seen it for Poland many times. I think he scored more goals for Poland than he has for Derby in his tenure. I think the one interesting thing about Kamil Jozwiak that has to be noted is that when he came to Derby, it was during the lockdown period in England, which was very, very strict. You couldn't go outside, right? He couldn't have his family come with him. It was several months before his girlfriend could join him. He had never lived outside of Poland. So he came into a completely foreign country, into a completely foreign league. He can't get out. He can't experience the environment that he's in. He can't really get settled. His friends and family can't really help him get settled. So, that's an interesting footnote. We did also have at the time, we still do have Polish international and Christian Bielik, who's probably our best player. And he was working his way back from an ACL tear. When Bielik did come back in from that first ACL tear, that correlated with Kamil Jozwiak's best run of form in the side. He was really, really good for about 5 or 6 games, but then Christian Bielik tore his ACL again. And Kamil's form fell off the table. From everything that we heard, from everybody we spoke to, he's a nice lad. He works really hard. He wanted to be a success, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out for him at Derby. He just went missing too often, and I think the best thing that I could say would be is he was an international quality player, but he never showed it, and that was the disappointment. Was you're sitting here and you're thinking, wow, this is an international player. Like Poland, they're not going to win the World Cup, but Poland's a solid, second round quarterfinal kind of team. Fools don't play for Poland. And then you're like, okay, I don't understand how he even makes the 25 or how he'd even be in the top 35 players in Poland. And he continued to get picked for them. So, that was the unfortunate thing. And the disallowed goal against Forest was really poetic because had that gone in, his career could have gone in a completely different way. But, it was disallowed for offside or some foul or something like that. And that really just summed up. He didn't really make much of an impact, which was the sad thing. And I think it was sad for Derby to let him. I think the strange thing was that when Derby let him go, Derby only have 5 players under contract for next season because we're not able to renew contracts currently in administration. And Kamil would have been a 6th player under contract. So you're letting a contracted player go. when you don't have any players for next season and you're thinking, okay, even if we go down, if we stay up, if we go down, he's still going to be on the team. But, obviously they made the decision to get rid of him at Charlotte. And I think he leaves with everybody's best wishes at Derby and the best they can do. There's a player in there somewhere. We unfortunately didn't see it at Derby. But hopefully we go through and we see it at Charlotte.
That's real interesting that you mentioned that he's this international quality player, but he hasn't shown it. And you talk about some of the things he needs to bring, polish around the edges, basically. For a player, and I told Connor this when he signed, for me, the only thing I knew about him was I packed his team of the season card in FIFA 20 when he was at Lech Poznan. Didn't know anything about him. Didn't know he made that move to Derby, excuse me. And I'm assuming that fans of Charlotte FC, who a lot of them probably just recently started following football or MLS or Charlotte in general, don't know much about him either. So from your guess, do you think that he will bring success to the Charlotte side? If you know much about the Charlotte side at all, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think they needed pace out wide. They needed an attacking force out wide. And I think Kamil Jozwiak fits that bill. He's also a bit flexible as he can play wing back. We've seen him play for Poland with great aplomb. I think in the Charlotte dressing room will help him because I know that they have 3 or 4 Poles in the squad already. So he should be able to go down there to Charlotte and fit into that dressing room. It's not like, it's a different country. Yeah, he's going to have to deal with a grueling travel schedule. He's going to have to deal with terrible amounts of oppressive heat and humidity. But I think in terms of fitting in with a group, I think he could fit in very quickly because he's got a lot of Polish players down there. Some of whom I think 3 or 4 are probably on the Polish team. I know one essentially is, and they refused him, and then he played because they said he was injured, but he wasn't. And that was a weird thing. But he will know a few of those Polish players. He will have played with them, so I think that'll help his transition. And I think, obviously the COVID pandemic is starting to it's not over, but it's starting to wind down and things are starting to open back up. So I think, he'll be able to experience the city. He'll be able to experience, life outside of kind of football. He'll have his family and his girlfriend there. And I would think also, the pace of the MLS might suit him because it's not, it's not 2 or 3 games a week. It's not relentless schedules. It's not torrential rain. It's not freezing cold all the time when you're playing. And I think also the pace of the MLS it's a different league. It's a different style of play. And I think the style of play might suit him better. We might get a little bit more time on the ball. He might be able to do 1 or 2 different things that he wasn't able to show at Derby due to the quick pace of the championship, the cut and thrust of the championship. So I think there's a player in there, like I said, and I think that he'll be in the right situation where he can shine. And I think the thing for Kamil Jozwiak is, like you said, he's obviously not a known quantity, right? He's going to want to play well. He's going to want to go to the World Cup with Poland. So it'll be interesting to see if Charlotte are out of the MLS playoffs very soon, very quickly. Does he get a loan move to try to stay sharp for the World Cup? That'll be interesting. But the thing is, for Kamil Jozwiak, longer term for his career, nobody knows him. He's not really a known quantity. Like you said, he played for Lech Poznan and had an indifferent spell at Derby, let's say. He's gone to Charlotte. If he fails at Charlotte or doesn't pull up any trees, is there a route back to him in Europe other than Polish football? I mean, there'll always be the Polish thing there because he's an international, but I'm not saying it's a last chance saloon for Kamil Jozwiak, but Charlotte provides him a great opportunity to relaunch his career, to try to kick back on, to get back into one of Europe's top leagues and show what he can do.